Glenn Dennis, a mortician working for the Ballard Funeral Home in Roswell, which had a contract to provide mortuary services for the base, received several phone calls from the base mortuary officer.
I got a call about around 1:15 or somewhere right after lunch, around 1:15 or 1:30, from the mortuary officer wanting to know what was the smallest size hermetically sealed casket that we had in stock. I get a call from the same officer, and he said, I would like to know what your preparations for bodies that might have been laying out in the elements are. He said, could you give me what's your preparation and how you would do it? And then before I could explain our procedure, before I could explain it, he said, what we're interested in, and this would probably be for future use too, he said, with your procedure, what you would have to do to the bodies that have been exposed to the elements and everything, what would your procedures do to changing the, like the chemical compounds, the tissues, the blood and all that, what would that do? Would that destroy any of it? Then let's say probably another hour, 15 minutes. I get a call. We had the only ambulance service, and I got a call on an emergency. There was an airman that was injured in a minor accident. He had a laceration in the forehead and in the nose. I think he had a fractured nose. And I took him to the base, but I didn't put him on a stretcher. He just sat up in the front seat with me. I gave him first aid, and then we just drove out to the hospital infirmary. And where I usually park the ambulance, there was 3 field ambulances, old Army ambulances there, and 2 of them there was an MP standing right there at the back of those field ambulances, and I really never thought too much about it because usually there's an ambulance, something back there most of the time anyway. But when I was taking the airman in, when we walked up on the ramp, I noticed the back doors of the 2 ambulances, the old field ambulances, were actually doing the crash, and we did our identification and everything in our garages and everything, getting the dog tags and the bodies and everything else. So I said, should I go get ready? And he said, that's when he said, you wait right here. And then 2 MPs come on and said, come on, mister, you're leaving. Then,
what do you remember about him?
Well, I don't remember anything about him, but the 2 MPs was taking me down the hall. They were, on each side of me, and they told me they had orders to follow me back to the funeral home. But we had gotten just not probably over 10, 15 feet, and then we heard this voice that we're not through with that SOB. He said, bring him back. So I turned around and went back, and then there was this other captain, red-headed captain. He was a mean-looking number, but he was talking pretty rough. And he said, you did not see anything. There was no crash here. You don't go into town and making any rumors that you saw anything, that there was any crashes. And he said you could get in a lot of trouble. Well, I was a little agitated, a little mad about the situation when he called me an SOB to start with. And I said, hey, look, mister, I said, I'm a civilian and you can't do a damn thing to me. And he said, oh, yes, we can, mister. He said, somebody would be picking your bones out of the sand. That's when I went on out and went back to the funeral. Then the next day, I tried to call this nurse. I wanted to call her, see what was going on, because then, when someone escorts you back, which had never happened before, you knew there was something wrong. It wasn't normal procedure, you knew that. So I tried to get a hold of her, and they kept telling me that she wasn't there yet. She wasn't there, and so I called maybe 3 or 4 times that morning, and about 11 o'clock, she called the funeral home and said, I understand you've been trying to get a hold of me. And she said, I'm not on duty today. But she said, I need to talk to you. And I said, fine, you want me to come to base? And she said, well, let's just meet at the officers club. She was very upset. She looked like, death warmed over. But she said, you won't believe what happened. And she said, before I talk to you, before I tell you anything, excuse me, I'm having a throat problem here, but she said, you have to give me a sacred oath that you will not ever mention my name or not. She said, you can get me in a lot of trouble. She said, but I'm going to tell you, you don't know where you got this, you know. And I said, what do you mean by sacred oath? And she said, I mean like cutting your arm off. That's what she told me. You know. And I said, okay, because I said, I would definitely like to know what, you know, what's going on.
Do you think she was telling you this because you were good friends?
Well, I think so, and I think she didn't want to get in trouble either, because she was very conscientious of everything. I mean, what happened, the way she got involved in the first place, she was going across the room to this other room to pick up some supplies. This is where the two doctors that were in there supposedly doing a preliminary autopsy on these bodies. And she got whatever she went. She started out, and these doctors said, "You're not going anywhere, nurse. We have to have you in here. So we have to have some help." And she said she never smelled anything so horrible in her life when she got in there. And I said it was the most gruesome, most horrible sight that she'd ever seen in her life. The smell was almost devastating. She said, "I was never so horrified in my life." And she said, "I don't know if I'll ever sleep again or anything else." She said, "I've never seen anything so gruesome." And I said, "Well, look, you're a nurse," and I said, "Anytime you're in this business, you're going to see a lot of things." And I said, "You may as well get used to it." And she said, "No, this isn't what it is." She said, "This is something that no one's ever seen."
Was she ordinarily calm or emotional?
Oh, no, she was so hysterical. She would
No, I mean ordinarily.
Yeah, oh, yeah, she was very, not laid back, but very precise, though, that, you know, but, I mean, she would grab her head and shake her head and cover her eyes and everything else. And
what were you thinking at this point?
well, I didn't know, because I was thinking that she was going in total shock. I really thought, hey, there's a problem here, and I thought she would probably go into total shock. She said, "Last night I made a diagram." She said, "You won't believe this," but she said, "I made a diagram," and she said, "on these little bodies," and she gave me she drew me a diagram of an arm, because she said the anatomy from the shoulder to here was real short, and this arm was longer here. And there was only 4 fingers. There wasn't a thumb, only 4 fingers. Little long, very fragile little hands. And she said when one of the hands was detached from the arm, and she said when the doctors turned it over, that she noticed on, and they made a notation. That's what she was doing, was trying to take notes and making notations for them. And they were all sick. But she said that on the tips of these little fingers, it looked like little pads with little holes that kind of looked like a small suction cup on each end of these fingers here. It said there was no thumb at all on none of them. They only had like the 4 fingers on that. And she said the heads were very much larger than the body. It was out of proportion for the size of the body, the head. The eyes were very deeply set back and set in. And she said that the amazing thing about the skulls that it wasn't like ours, that it was kind of like a newborn baby. They were kind of flexible, that, you know, the doctors couldn't move, that it wasn't, you know, like a hard skull. And she said that was a different, the nose was very concave. She said there was only like a couple of little orifices, and you didn't have the bridge of the nose, but it was more or less concave. The mouth was just a real fine little slit there. The doctor said there was no teeth, but it looked like maybe